if it wasn't for Dune Part 2, this would be my favorite movie of the year so far.
Wow, wait, now you're joking.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We are back. The Eye of the Storm podcast. We're my boys Daniel and Hervey.
Hi.
And guys, before we get into the main discussion, guys, you already know what time it is. The best thing that you've recently watched.
I can go first. So I think I mentioned last week that I was watching like 5-6 different series all at the same time and not finished any of them. But I watched a couple more episodes of Shogun. And actually going back to that after having watched some of the other stuff, it just kind of highlights the quality of a show that Shogun is. Like, that show is fantastic. I'm on episode 6 now and things are like starting to heat up and it's just fantastic. So that's my one.
I still need to watch the second half. I haven't really watched any of it yet since we did our spoiler cast about it. But I've heard good things about the ending. Apparently, they really stick the landing and maintains its quality throughout. But I've kind of been putting it off a little bit, mostly because it's the only thing I'm only really looking forward to, and also because you really need to focus on it. Like, you really need to make some time for it.
Yeah, from where we picked up, because I think I left it off same time as you did, and I've probably maybe gone an episode or two something ahead of where you was, but it's literally quality throughout. And I actually rewatched some of the earlier things, and actually they do put in some interesting things in like episode 1 and maybe like even episode 2 and 3. But I rewatched episode 1 because I introduced my partner to it, and I was like, that actually then paid off, which was really cool to see actually.
So I again tried and mostly failed this week. I've tried out a bunch of different things, some stuff on Netflix, some stuff on other places. Like, I saw this Indian horror series that had a really strong first episode, and then episode 2 it descended into complete trash. So everything I tried this week kind of didn't quite pan out. But the best thing I watched was Predator 2, which I hadn't seen in probably over 20 years. Really enjoyed it, really solid action movie. I do think Predator is kind of still a franchise looking for an identity, because they just keep doing the same thing over and over again. And they haven't really figured out what the formula is yet. But I think a lot of people like the Predator and the look and the technology and all of that. But nobody's really figured out how to create a formula to make Predator stuff. And so I liked the first one. I think the second one is decent enough. And Prey from a year or two ago was pretty strong, but also didn't really feel like that they hit on a formula, unless it's the Predator goes throughout human history and just meets warriors of different kinds and then judges them. But that's not really a very strong formula. So it's kind of this weird franchise with an identity crisis. But Predator 1 and 2 and Prey are pretty solid. But then there's like 17 more that try and fail to figure out what they want to be.
I don't think I've actually ever watched the original Predators, and I do need to watch Prey as well. The only one I actually did watch was Alien vs Predator a very long time ago. I don't quite recall that one completely, but that one was a bit wacky.
Yeah, I think that's one that runs entirely on aesthetics. Like, if you think Aliens and the Predator are cool and you want to see them fight, then Alien vs Predator gives you that. But it's not really about anything. But Predator 1 was about something. It was actually a satire of 80s action movies, which is the funny thing. Like, nobody like that, you can't really do that anymore because it's been 40 years since that kind of movie was current. But also nobody has really tried to translate that formula to the modern day, right? And I'm not entirely sure what that would be. Like, what's the big action archetype at the moment that needs to be satirized? Kind of having a hard time coming up with something.
Question, because I know this movie's kind of coming up sort of next week that we're going to be reviewing, but has Predator been rebooted over the sort of 17 odd movies that you said that's come out of it?
I think it's like 6 or 17 was exaggeration for effect, but there's like 6 or something.
Yeah, so I'm guessing there hasn't been a reboot. Do you feel like sort of kind of what Planet of the Apes did with sort of Rise of the Planet of the Apes? Do you feel like maybe like a reboot where they kind of like recontextualize it and maybe like give it a new identity and like focus on a particular story that they want to tell with the Predator movies? Do you feel like that is what the franchise might need?
Maybe, but I think nobody's had the idea yet, because they're all kind of toying with the idea, okay, this is a big game hunter, bounty hunter kind of thing, who uses unfair technology to kind of hunt people who have no chance of fighting back, really, right? That's kind of the paradox in the Predator. He's actually a lot like a big game hunter, like somebody who goes to like the savannah and shoots rhinos from an air-conditioned Jeep or something, right? That's kind of how the Predator comes across. And then brags about what a great hunter they are when actually it was not a fair fight of any kind, right? It seems to be there's something there, but I think nobody's really found it. And so they keep kind of recycling the aesthetics and the feel of the Predator without really figuring out what the story is. I think the first person who does, I think, will make a lot of money. But so far, nobody's really gotten there.
Cool.
Well, I just remembered what I watched last week. It was actually one of Daniel's recommendations, which, by the way, I do agree with what you said, Daniel, about the film. Basically, I watched Cobweb, and well, let's just say
that's your best this week.
That was the best thing I've watched. But the reason why I say it's the best is because you're right. It was 2 movies in one. The first 2 acts I found were really good. The third act was just a whole completely different movie, which I didn't understand. It's not even like it felt unfinished, but it's like they had 2 movie ideas and they wanted to put it in one and try and make it work, but it didn't really work. And I say that because the first 2 acts was amazing because obviously, there was the whole suspicion around the parents and, to see if they were really haunted, if they were possessed, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, so basically, if you haven't seen it, it's pretty much a family, dad, mom, and a little boy. And the son, he pretty much hears noises, as in like he hears someone talking to him, and obviously the voice of his girl, which ends up being his sister. That's the only spoiler I'm going to see for anyone that wants to go watch it. And obviously there's suspicion around the parents because obviously he gets like dreams, and they act a bit weird as well sometimes in actual real lifetime.
One of the best depictions I've seen of the super strict, stifling parents who micromanage every minute of their child's life, with some great, like the actor who plays Homelander plays the father, and he's fantastic in this, and the mother is great too. And then kind of 2/3 of the way into the movie, it turns into a haunted house movie. The movie feels like a prank to me.
Yeah,
it's a bit like we got your interest with this great psychological, borderline Southern Gothic horror movie, and now we're gonna give you the most batshit ghost story as a payoff. Like it almost feels like they're making fun of you.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It wasn't really a ghost story. It was more like a monster story ish.
Yeah, but like monster in the wall. It's kind of
yeah. But I do agree because like the whole suspicion around the parents and the mystery around the parents, they should have stuck with that. There wasn't like a actual answer to why the parents were acting so weird. Of course, the answer was because the sister, but it didn't really explain the dreams that he was having. And yes, I was thinking, okay, so they just completely ruined the film with Act 3, and I don't know why they did that. Like, the third act just didn't fall in line with the first 2, and it, like Daniel said, it felt like a prank. But I think the first 2 acts were enough to say this was actually a good film.
Like I was really on board with the first 2/3 of the movie, and then in the last act, I couldn't look away because it was so weird.
If the film was based on the third act, as in throughout the film, I think it would have been a generic, alright, fun film because I did enjoy watching the sister go on a rampage, 100%. But it wasn't the film that was presented to us in the first 2 acts. That was my problem.
First of all, the first part was good enough on its own that it could have been a way above average horror movie. It didn't feel like they were making a point. It's just like they had to end the movie somehow.
Yeah, exactly.
The monster in.
Because when I watched the film, at the end of it, I was trying to put the pieces together, and there was no pieces to put. The pieces were just separate.
But there were several pieces, but they belonged to 2 different puzzles.
That's what I'm saying. That's literally what I'm gonna say. Like one bunch of pieces on one side and a bunch of pieces on the other side. Act 1 and Act 2 on that side. Act 3 on that side. I didn't understand. That's why I'm gonna go read reviews and just people's opinions on Google to see if there was anything that was missing for the third act, because it just didn't fall into place. It didn't make sense on why Act 3 was created, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, all right, guys, the main event.
The Fall Guy. Jonathan, take us away.
Let's just say you'll get what you saw. And what I mean by that is the trailer. Exactly from what you see from the trailer is exactly what you'll get from the movie. It was a simple, generic film, which was fun. It had its quirky moments, as in the quirky, comedic, awkward moments. It wasn't overdone. Overall, I had a all right experience with this. The whole comedy action isn't really my go-to genre. So with this one, when I saw the trailer, it just felt generic. I was intrigued to see if anything in this film was going to be done that surpassed my expectations, because I didn't really go into this film thinking anything of it. I just thought, okay, this is just going to be a popcorn film, another day at the cinema type of film. So I was intrigued to see if what was presented in the trailer was going to be like in the film. I pretty much got what I expected. It was fun-ish. It was okay. It was all right. Simple.
For me, I'm going to emphasize for me, this was awful. This was terrible. I was ready to walk out after 20 minutes of the movie. And I'm actually very sure that I saw one couple actually leave the cinema, maybe like a little bit later in the movie. And like, it's really weird because I know it's got like really good Rotten Tomato scores. And actually, this was one I was like looking forward to, from the trailers and stuff like that. I thought like this might be like really cool, but I don't know, like there was nothing about it that really grabbed me. Obviously, this was meant to be like an action kind of rom-com comedy type of thing. And I understand like the angle that they were trying to go with. But I don't feel like they stuck the landing with most of what they were trying to go for. Like the whole like rom-com aspect of it just completely fell flat for me. And this is someone that actually does enjoy, rom-com movies at times when it's done well. But I just felt like the typical like rom-com stuff where, you've got this couple, you have to like create a bit of like tension between them, and then they eventually get together towards the end. I just felt like it just didn't sell it well for me. And at no point did I care about like the conflict between them, and at no point did I really care about them coming together as one. I thought that action was kind of cool. There was parts of it, like, especially when he was like kind of like using his experience as a stuntman to like kind of go through some of the action. I felt like that was pretty cool. But for the most part, I was bored and not really entertained, and it wasn't funny. And again, this is someone that I love a comedy movie, but it wasn't funny for me. I don't think there was probably maybe like one, and I can't even remember it because the movie was quite forgettable, but there was like maybe one thing that I laughed at, and it was very noticeable. So I was like trying to gauge the reaction because I was like, it can't only be me. But I don't think that there was many laughs in the theater that I was in at all for the movie. So overall, it was pretty weak and very, I say very disappointing, because I actually had high hopes. Again, this is a movie that's been advertised to be, I've been slapped over the head with this movie because I've just seen it everywhere. But yeah, I think it was just disappointing.
Were you not shot to the heart?
Yeah, I might have been. No, do you know what? I thought it'd be like, kind of what Jonathan was saying. I thought it'd be like a decent movie, like where you can go there and you can maybe have a decent time with a movie, but I didn't get that.
I'm not surprised that you didn't like the film. What I am surprised on is when you said that, you're pretty not excited, but you're looking forward to the film based on obviously what you've seen, and which is the trailer. Which I'm really surprised, because when I watched the trailer, I even mentioned this to Daniel. I saw the trailer, I said I didn't feel anything while watching the trailer. That's why I was so intrigued to go and watch this film. I said, surely this film cannot end up like, it can't be what I'm getting from the trailer. There has to be more to this film. So that's why I'm a bit confused. Like when you watch the trailer,
I thought I thought there'd probably be better comedy in there. And not to say that the trailer had good comedy or anything, but like your Ryan Reynolds type of character where it's just a bit like kind of like wacky, a little bit funny and whatever like that. The way he is in like maybe like Free Guy or something like that. I thought Ryan Gosling might be able to do slightly like something of that.
I was going to say, you are aware that these are different Ryans, right?
Yeah, no, I know, yeah. No, I know. But obviously, like, Ryan Reynolds is kind of the king of, like, that type of character. And obviously, it was, like, Ryan Gosling kind of doing something a little bit similar to that. Even, like, Brad Pitt in Bullet Train. I don't know if you guys have seen Bullet Train. Like, Brad Pitt in Bullet Train was fantastic, and he does a similar type of, like, comedy. But it just didn't hit. And I felt like the movie... Do you know what? I felt like the movie was, like, too distracted in terms of like what it wanted to be. Like I feel like the rom-com stuff was probably like some of the weakest stuff in the movie, and they probably could have gotten rid of that completely and actually just focused on doing a good action comedy movie. Because again, I was like pulling my eyes out for like the first 20 minutes when they were doing this whole like setting up this like relationship between these two characters. I was like, it's just not working. We're spending way too much time with it, and I genuinely don't care about the two of them.
So for me, if it wasn't for Dune Part 2, this would be my favorite movie of the year so far.
Wow, wait, no, you're joking.
No, not really. So I think it really comes down to what you expect from this movie, right? So you're not going to get laugh out loud funny one-liners. You're not going to get a gripping romance. What you are going to get is a competent action movie that has a strong premise and that knows what it wants to do, and it does that throughout the movie and never really wavers from that. Like there's just one or two little details where it kind of does, but like I care a lot about structure and about things like setup and like the mechanics of constructing a movie and a story. And this not only does that, but it does that right every step of the way. There are so many little details that kind of build up to who these people are and what the logic of the story is and how it unfolds, that I think is really competently done. Like everything, if you go back through our spoiler cast throughout the last 4 months, I tend to complain about the same thing, right? Character motivations are not clear. Things are not set up and paid off properly. Cause and effect throughout the story is not clear. And this movie does all of that correctly. Now, that by itself doesn't automatically make it a great movie, but it creates a very strong foundation. And I personally like the main character. I didn't like Jodie, that much, and we're probably going to get into that. And I didn't think the romance was very strong. But the romance wasn't the plot. The romance was the motivation for him. And if you're in it for the romance plot, I think this is pretty weak. But if you are in it for what the romance motivates, then, or if you can get on board with that, I think it's much stronger. And that's what I got out of it.
Do you know what? I feel like maybe they, like, one of the missteps for me was the start of the movie. And I felt like it spent too much time on the romance side of things, and especially like that being sort of some of the weakest parts of the movie, that I felt like when we got to some of the better stuff in the movie, or like some of the actions and stuff like that, I think I was checked out very early of this movie.
Yeah.
Which is why maybe
I really like the opening sequence, because yes, we get a bunch of exposition between them, like we know what their relationship is like, we know that they're kind of on the brink of a real relationship, and that he's kind of ambivalent, like he's a little bit scared to make that step, and she keeps giving him signals and all of that. I don't find their romance all that interesting, but I think the opening sequence, I think, is really well made, because it tells you so much about the different characters, while at the same time there's stuff happening. It's not like we pause the movie so that they can talk about their feelings for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever. As he is preparing for the stunt, we get all this exposition, but I didn't think it overstayed its welcome at all.
For me, it did.
Oh, for you, it did? Okay.
For me,
Could you get into the stunt work stuff at all? Like, was that appealing at all for you?
Stunt work stuff. I mean, it was cool. I don't think it was amazing. I wasn't like wowed by it. I don't know. It didn't win me over. I wasn't engaged with it. I wouldn't say with any of the stunt stuff at all.
Any particular reasons? Was it not well done? Was it not interesting? Was it too obvious? What?
And again, it's very difficult to say. It was just like not interesting. But I wouldn't say it wasn't well done, but it just wasn't interesting. Like, I understand the gag that they were trying to go for, with especially like with him when she was like making him repeat, so being set on fire and like hitting the rocks or whatever like that. But that wasn't anything like the opening. I'm even trying to remember it, because like
we can get into what an awful person Jodie is. In a minute, but just the stunt aspect, that didn't do it for you?
I actually liked it more outside of like him actually doing the stunt work. I actually like when there's like the car chases and stuff like that, and he's using sort of like his stunt skills to pull off like things that you see in typical action movies, but it's like, how the hell like has he been able to do that? But like in this movie, he's a stuntman. That's his job, to be able to jump out of a window and like land on the car and this, that, and the other. So that I was more engaged with, as opposed to like the stunt work that he was actually doing.
See, for me, that was the movie. Like this, like every scene, every action scene is informed by him being a stuntman, right? He doesn't turn into generic action hero man. He never picks up a gun, and the one time he does, it's a prop gun, which is one of the great gags in this movie, I thought. The way every fight scene is worked out and unfolds is informed by him not being a fighter. Like he does get into fights, but not like as the super action hero.
I actually figured out my problem with this movie. I think you guys know that I'm not always the biggest lover of just action movies. Aside from like a John Wick or something like that, I was very harsh on like The Beekeeper towards the start of the year. I typically need something a little bit more on top of that, and I feel like that's probably why I was like a little bit more disappointed, was, and I'll get your thoughts on some of the comedy side of things, and it probably hit a little bit more for you than it did for me. But like the comedy aspect of it, I wasn't invested in. The story itself that it was telling, while I'll take your word for it that you say like everything kind of like made sense, and like the motivation and stuff like that, I wasn't invested in. And then the kind of romance aspect of it, I wasn't invested in. So like, again, whilst I can appreciate the action and say that was good, I feel like that's then why the movie falls down for me, because like for me personally, the action isn't necessarily going to win me over and make me enjoy the movie.
So for me, it's a whole bunch of different things. Like, for instance, the fact that the thing about the mouth guard, right? That is not something your average action movie would have done.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because it makes the protagonist look kind of weak or unattractive. Like, your average movie would not do that, right?
Yeah.
But because he's a stuntman, he knows to do that, and he is always about safety first, right? Even when he puts himself into these crazy situations. Just as one example, when they're in the loft, right, and they get attacked by the villain's goons, there's this whole choreography where he draws the prop gun on the guy and then lets himself be disarmed on purpose, so that when the guy shoots him with the gun, he can play dead. And he can do that because he's a stuntman, right? He knows how to fall. He knows how to look dead to an observer, right? Because we set up this elaborate thing where he's always looking away from the camera, so that it's not apparent that it's not the actor on camera.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There was a very long sequence where basically, if there's too much face showing, then he has to do it again.
Yeah.
And it hurts every time. So he learns to believably play dead and not make eye contact with the camera and stuff like that, right? And that enables him to play convincingly dead. so that the goon thinks he's dead, and then he attacks him from behind. And then the goon chases him up kind of the stairs, and then they wrestle for a bit and fall down to a lower level, but he's put the cushion exactly where he knows he's going to fall. So he falls on the cushion and the goon falls on the floor. Like, I love that entire sequence. That did nothing for you.
I mean, it was cool. No, like I'm not saying it's bad or it didn't do anything for me, but it's just I can respect the technicalities of it and like sort of the thought behind everything that they did within the action scene. But
it's several things at once. It's not just the fact that it's a meticulously choreographed action scene.
Mhm.
It's also that it's exciting. It doesn't drag. It's a well-paced action sequence, right? And it's I thought solidly done. And it's also in character because everything he does in that sequence is something he knows as a stuntman, and that nobody expects him to do because they don't normally deal with stuntmen, right? So on that, like I found that really satisfying.
And I get it, and like that's completely fine. And this is why I say like for me and like emphasize for me, it's just.
And stuff like that happened like 10 times in the movie. It wasn't just that one scene.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It was like that kept happening over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I did recognize like again like sort of when things like that were happening throughout the movie, but I just wasn't gripped by it. And I don't know. And again, like I can say that I'm an anomaly because it's got really good critic scores, it's got really good audience scores as well. So I can accept that I'm like viewing it differently than what most people are viewing it.
If you don't feel it, you don't feel it, right? The subjective question of did you have fun watching this? That's not something you can be right or wrong about, right? Well, I'm always interested in why does something work for somebody. And for me, it was really this constant, meticulous paying attention to details and making everything matter and making everything fit together in that sense is really what like I want out of a movie. Like even if it's not the subject matter of the movie, here it was very literal, right? Like he does these things on purpose because he's a stuntman and because he's always aware of his surroundings and he's always creating circumstances where it's safe to do these unsafe things, right? In most movies, this stuff isn't as overt, but it's like I always find it satisfying when stuff matters and when things make sense and add up.
Yeah.
Question: do you think it could be because of the subject matter and the settings? Because like a story about a stuntman in a comedy action film, do you think that has anything to do with why people, for example, other people besides Hervey might not actually like the film? Because I'm thinking to myself, like I said, it was fun, mainly because of the action scenes, but in terms of like the drama itself, like the dialogue scenes, etc., it wasn't like emotionally gripping for me. It didn't strike any emotional chords for me. So I think what was keeping me awake and what was keeping my interest in the film, like I said, was the action scenes. I don't know how interested people are on with a storyline of a stuntman. Do you know what I'm saying? A murder mystery stuntman.
But it's not really like it is about stunt people, right? Like the basic plot of it is that he's basically disposable because he's the stuntman and so on. But I think there's a larger allegory here, and this brings me to my next level on which it works. Is that I always complain about lazy social commentary. This has a very strong thesis, and it weaves its story around the thesis and expresses it, I think, logically, which is basically that society pays attention to the wrong people. So in this movie, the stuntman is disposable, but the stunt people do the real work. And there's a very clear distinction between the popular people, which is actors and producers, and the people who do the real work, like directors and stunt people and so on. I don't think there's any crossover between those two groups. And there's a very fundamental moral difference between them. Both the producer and the actor are just awful people, but they know how to play other people, and other people enable them. Because it's all about perceptions, right? And they know how to manipulate those perceptions, which is then brought home in the end when the actor is completely replaceable. Like they just recast him.
And I definitely got that. But do you think it could have been done in a different setting? As in like in a post-group setting?
You have a similar dynamic between doctors and nurses, for example. Yeah. Or there's like hierarchies like that among teachers, or in a company between salespeople and back office support people. Right? There are many different circumstances in which there's this mismatch between the people who do the work and the people who get all the attention. Like everybody does their job, but there's a difference between how different professions or jobs are perceived in terms of how much status they get, how much attention they get, how much they get celebrated, and that sort of thing. And this stunt people versus actors is the example here. But I think one level on which I could identify with the protagonist here is that, I've been kind of in similar situations where I do a bunch of work and then somebody else gets the credit because of what job I have and what job the other person has, right? And it has very little to do with how much work went into that. And I think lots of people can relate to that. And that's where the allegory comes from.
And I agree definitely with what you're saying. I think, like you said, the mechanics of it was well done, and obviously the message behind the whole film that they presented was, as you said. But just because something works, right, can it still be justified as a good film? Because there's many films out there that the storyline works and it connects well, and everything's well done, but it doesn't necessarily still make it a good film. Because I feel like with films, personally for me, my emotional heartstrings need to be pulled. So if you can't emotionally connect with a film, can you still say it's a good film?
I'd like a kind of a question back to you, because like it seems like me and Jonathan, for once, are a little bit are against Daniel on the movie.
No, hold on. I'm not necessarily against Daniel.
Not against. But like I feel like Daniel like holds it to higher regard than to what we do at the moment. Yeah. Do you feel like it was the tone of the movie, Jonathan, in terms of like why you wasn't able to sort of engage with? And I feel like that was one of my problems, is the tone that they chose to go for, where everything was just like a little bit wacky, and everything was like maybe a little bit too over the top and things like that. And some of the characters were kind of a bit sort of played up a little bit, and I feel like that didn't help me connect with any of the characters or kind of like engage with them. I felt like some of the talent was wasted as well. I can't remember who the black guy is. He's like from Black Panther. I felt like, he's genuinely like a funny person. He is a really good actor, but I felt like the way that he was like even played out in here just didn't work for me at all in this movie. So, Jonathan, do you feel like part of it was like the tone that just didn't sit right with you or didn't help you connect with the movie?
Yeah, I can definitely say that definitely played a part in it. But like I said before, I wasn't like looking forward to this film. And that's like I said, because the trailer it wasn't showing me anything different from other action comedy rom-com films that I've seen. So for me personally, like you said, the tone definitely does have a part to play in it, because it's pretty much it stays the same throughout. The whole, quirkiness, corny type of awkward vibe moments, which is cool, but it's just not my go-to. There wasn't anything emotionally gripping about the actual drama scenes itself. That's why I just keep on saying, like, if the settings was different, maybe, as in like it had a more serious tone to it, then, or it could have a mixture. Yeah. It could have a mixture of a serious tone and a comedic tone and the whole rom-com as well, all in one. I just feel like it was constant, just the same tone throughout, which was the whole funny, quirky, corny type of film. I think if there wasn't if they did incorporate the whole serious tone into it somehow, then maybe I would have felt a bit differently.
It didn't necessarily need to be serious, but I don't think every character needed to be played up. That's like maybe part of the problem I had with this as well, is that like every character you come across is a little bit eccentric or a little bit quirky or a little bit wacky, where, some of the comedies I like is that you might have like the main character who's just a little bit crazy, and you might have like a few other people that are a little bit normal but might have like some like funny things to say. Like, again, like back to, I forget the guy. What's the black guy's name? Dan.
The stunt coordinator guy, right?
Stunt coordinator guy. Even like him, like his actor, like if you see his character in like Black Panther, for example, like if he was like something along those lines where he's like a little bit serious, but he's like flipping, like anytime like you give him something funny to say, he nails it and he's like hilarious, but he's still like kind of like serious within his role or whatever like that. I feel like I would have like enjoyed it a little bit more, but yeah. I feel like
I think that was a very funny role. I don't remember any funny lines that he
it wasn't.
He's the best friend, and he's the sidekick basically in this, right?
Yeah.
But to answer your original question, Jonathan, you originally asked what makes this a good movie, right, or something like that. And I think a good movie is one you enjoy watching. And I think all the different reasons, I think it can help to understand why you enjoyed something or didn't enjoy. And that can help find more things like it, or get additional levels of enjoyment out of it, that sort of thing. So you can't disprove somebody's experience of having watched a movie. And if you didn't connect with it, then you didn't connect with it. I just thought there was a whole bunch going on, and I connected with much of it.
Yeah.
No, I definitely see, I see why you emotionally connected with the film, because obviously you saw the allegories and obviously you saw the deeper meanings behind the film 100%.
That was one of them, right? The whole status thing and how people are being judged and perceived according to their job title and that sort of thing. As for the humor, I don't think it was that funny. As in, I thought there were a couple of kind of funny places in it, but it wasn't laugh out loud funny, and it wasn't the one-liners that were in the trailer. So I think if you expected the kind of humor that was advertised in the trailer, you're not going to get very much. Like in the final sequence where she's in the car and he's on the camera crane and they're talking about going on a date. Like, that is supposed to be a funny line, and I kind of just sat through it. It's like, I didn't like that line in the trailer, and I didn't like it here. As we were getting to the end of the movie, I was kind of saying, did they cut that line from the movie? And or is it a trailer only line? And I hope so, because it's not a great line. And then it happened. But it's also short. Like, it's like 30 seconds. But some of the humor I liked was, for instance, when he gets drugged and they do this stylized fight scene where there's sparkles every time he punches somebody. Like, Argyle kind of did that, but here it's justified because it's his perception. And it lasts like 2-3 minutes, and then it's over. And after that, he keeps seeing the unicorn, and they make a big deal out of it once. And then after that, the unicorn is still there 2 or 3 times, and then the drug wears off and it's gone. And in the last 2-3 times, it's played completely deadpan. Like, when he goes to the hotel to follow up on the lead, the unicorn is just in the background, and he stops acknowledging it because no one knows what's going on. I thought it was funny. But I think that there's another one where I think it's in the elevator with him or something like that. I thought that worked, but it wasn't laugh out loud funny. It wasn't a comedy. I think that's part of it too, that it's a little bit of everything. Like, it's an action rom-com comedy, but it doesn't do all of those things especially well, but it does all of them competently, I thought. Like, for me, the action was a standout because it's very grounded and it felt real, even though I think a real person would not be able to put up with that much punishment. But the conceit was that he's a stunt guy and he's been taking hits for years and years, and he knows how to take a fall, and so he does over and over again. I didn't think it was repetitive. I thought each one was slightly different and kind of approached that idea from a slightly different angle. And then there's neat little things like the dog that only speaks French. I thought that was okay. And like, they make a big deal out of it once or twice, and after that, it's just there. Like, they don't dwell on it. Like, they don't expect you. They don't pass for laughter every time. Right? They do it once, and after that, yes, they have a dog that only speaks French. And because this dog has been around for a while, everybody knows this, and everybody knows how to talk to the dog. I thought that, it was amusing. That wasn't a joke that made the movie. But for me, there's a whole bunch of these different things that all add up, and very few of them fall flat entirely. And if one does, then just wait 30 seconds and something else comes along.
But that's the problem, is that, like you say, something else comes along, but then everything that came along, just especially with like the gags or like the jokes that they were trying to play in there. And I'm really annoyed because there was actually one part that I did laugh out loud, and I can't remember it, and it really bugs me. It really annoyed me because it hit me. And I was like, I do want to give that credit in the review, but I can't remember it, and it's really annoyed me that I can't remember it.
Okay, so what would we say we disliked? Because obviously, Dan, you've mentioned a lot of the stuff that I think we should start with you first, because you mentioned a lot of the stuff that you said you did like. So what would you say you didn't like about the film?
Jodie and the romance. Like, Jodie is a horrible person. So, and I don't think she's supposed to be. I think the movie wants her to be the person who is good and admirable enough for Colt to earn her affection. And I don't think it works. She does a whole bunch of different things throughout the movie that make her look very self-centered and very uncompassionate. The movie wants us to be on her side. Like, for instance, he almost dies, right, in this accident, and he's dedicated his life to this career, and it looks like he won't be able to do it anymore. So he doesn't take anybody's call, not just her calls, but anybody's call, right, for over a year. And she blames him personally for it, and he keeps apologizing for it and makes this huge deal out of it. Like, it's his personal failing that he needed time to work this out and didn't want to be confronted with his biggest failure in life. I could relate to that. And I could see how for a year you don't want to talk to anybody. She should, be upset about that and try it maybe twice and then take the hint. And then she should not have held a grudge, and he should not have to grovel for an entire movie to make up for it.
That was my main problem with like the romance stuff, was like, I saw it and I felt the exact same way that you did, in terms of like, you have to understand that he's just had this like big accident and sort of he needed his time and space to kind of get over it. And I just felt like they, because you have to enter that, you have to sort of insert the conflict in there. And I felt like they could have maybe tried to do it a slightly different way. So similar to like, the Doctor Strange situation with, I can't remember what his like love interest is in the Doctor Strange movie, where he's had the accident and he's like purposely cold towards her and this, that, and the other. You maybe like, I think maybe part of the problem is that they didn't show it, and they didn't show like the effects that it maybe had on her for you to then feel sorry for her and understand it from her perspective. I felt like they just kind of like said it, and
it's from his perspective, right? We know why he behaves, or at least throughout the movie we learn why he behaves this way. It's not because he's a screw up. It's not because he's self-centered, whatever. It's because he has internalized this whole idea that he lives to make other people look good, and he can no longer do that thing, and therefore he's no longer good enough for her.
But then it doesn't help set up the kind of romance aspect of it. If we're not seeing the other perspective, or if we're not introducing the conflict in the right way, then it doesn't help for people. And I know a lot of people love it, so I wonder how it played off for them. But I know for me personally, that didn't help me be invested in the relationship. So something like, what's the movie from? Anyone But You. I think, Jonathan, you watched that earlier this year, where you have a situation where they've had. And again, it doesn't have to essentially be this, but the reason that wouldn't work for me was that they had a one-night stand, and you could tell that this was like the perfect date and that they should be together. But then there's a situation where someone's overheard something, and someone's been scared to like say their feelings or whatever, and then that's created a rift, and they've been apart for whatever. But then they're forced to reconcile on this sort of little getaway or whatever, and then they're then starting to like figure out that what their issue was, and like where they were at that stage in their particular life, and how like they kind of like have grown, and like they end up getting back together. And I felt like that was a very compelling romance story, but I just felt like it was lacking in this movie.
Yeah, I genuinely don't see what he sees in her, right? And that's really where the romance falls apart for me, because of how one-sided it is. And then also the movie is completely on the side of he should be lucky that she pays any attention to him, and he needs to basically do what's necessary to make this work, right? Like there's no meeting in the middle here.
I agree with what you're both saying. I think it felt like even though they're both blonde and they both work in the film industry, it felt like such a mismatch. It felt like it was a relationship filled with lust rather than there was an actual connection built between them.
In Anyone But You, like you see, like that first interaction they have where they first meet, and then the first date that they go on, it builds that relationship where you're like, okay, this is something more than just lust, like you're saying there. Whereas again, I understand what you're saying in this one, where it's just like there's just two people that are attractive and want to sort of get with each other, basically, is what I got from it.
I thought that there was a genuine attraction between them, and they genuinely were on the path to having a real relationship, and then this accident happened. I didn't think this was just like a fling on the set or something. I thought that was genuine. I do agree with you that like their chemistry isn't terribly great, and I think the scenes where we show them be together seem a bit artificial a little bit. Like these are the scenes that are supposed to communicate to you what an amazing couple they are, but it felt kind of still and artificial to me as well.
The only like scene I think was maybe like cute and showed like them really well together was in the car scene. They're about to leave, and then she gets in the car or whatever like that. They have like a conversation, and then she goes, "Can you drive for me to my car?" And then like they drive about like 2 meters forward, and then she like,
which is a decent joke.
Yeah, and I felt like that was like a cute scene, and I felt like that was like, that showed good I feel like that was like, good chemistry between the two of them.
And I think that was also the one time she cared about his perspective of things.
Yeah.
Maybe there was one other, but generally she doesn't. Like one of the most egregious scenes for that was where she's in the karaoke place singing a song about how sad she is and how misunderstood she is. And then outside he's driving past, like the garbage truck is driving past, and he's fighting a guy in the back, like risking his life for other people. And meanwhile, she's in the karaoke bar feeling sad for herself.
One scene as well that I really liked between them two was the whole retake scenes where she continued.
That made her look really bad.
Yeah, exactly, because she was literally abusing her power and literally this guy inflicted pain on this guy who, you know what I'm saying?
And the whole thing about making him have this conversation in public and stuff like that. Like it makes her look like she's on a power trip. It makes her look very unsympathetic. Like even if she is completely right, and I don't think she is, doing this in public in this way is gross abuse of power.
That's the issue I have with the movie, because of like the tone of it. It's like it didn't really matter that it was in public, because it was like everyone just kind of like laughing and joking and whatever like that. And it wasn't like I understand like
it's very clear on her side of that. Like this was very much a moment of you tell him.
Yeah, basically, but it kind of played off. It played weird to me in a sense that, and maybe it's
the dissonance of how she was clearly in the wrong there, but also the movie thought she was right. That really rubbed me the wrong way.
Who would we say had the best performance?
They are all pretty good, but none of them really stood out. But also, I don't really pay attention to the acting specifically. Like they all did their job, and they all conveyed the character the way it was supposed to be conveyed. I liked Colt Seavers generally. He's kind of a little bit generic protagonist guy, but his personality, I think, is informed by his profession. Everything he does is to make other people look good at his own expense. And that wasn't just a gimmick, that was weaved throughout his personality and how he related to other people and every decision he makes. It all just added up, I thought. Other than that, probably weak point was Tom Ryder. Like, he was a little bit one-dimensional. Like, I can get people who, the narcissist is probably the wrong word, but who are like complete sociopaths and only think about themselves and derive joy from being on a power trip. Like, that's all fine. But he was a little bit one-dimensional.
I like his agent. The producer. I can't remember her name.
That's some of the worst lines where it got very unsettled.
Yeah, I think I only liked her because she was in Ted Lasso and I recognized her and I was like, okay, you're cool. And I think that just made me connect with her. And like,
I think when she was being slimy producer person, I thought she did well. When they put like messagey lines in her mouth, it was a lot less compelling.
She was very like ditzy, but deep down, you could tell there's something fishy about her.
Well, she was like superficial polite, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of people like that in the film industry as well, so it kind of fitted in well.
I think you're the only one of us who's actually worked in the film industry. Like, have you met people like this?
A lot, but to be fair, it's not even just the film industry, you know. A lot is in work in general. A lot of people are fake nice. That's professional. That's professionalism. Professionalism is acting fake nice.
Film industry has a reputation for being extreme in that way, right?
100%, especially when it comes to talents. When it comes to talents, you're smiling 24/7. You're just acting like her, whoever her name was. That's how you have to behave. What's her name again?
Gail.
Yes, you have to take
girls. Remembering these names.
Well, my secret is I have the Wikipedia page open.
Okay.
So that's my secret weapon. But I actually kind of liked her most of the time, right? A lot of the time, she actually was seemingly polite and nice and saying nothing. And before you knew it, she had gotten you to agree to what she wanted in the first place. I think there were a couple of conversations where that was, I thought, pretty well done. Also, what's it called? Metal Storm looks better than Rebel Moon. I'd really like to watch Metal Storm at some point.
Wow, that is a violation. To be fair, yeah, when actually seeing the film, I can't lie, I wouldn't watch it, but I understand why you're saying it's better than Rebel Moon. Jesus Christ.
I kept thinking that, like, it was very clearly a Dune parody, right? From the music to the desert setting, with a little bit of Mad Max in there as well, but primarily Dune.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up, especially when they were in like the sand sea, and then you got like the woman like kind of like chanting in the background or whatever like that, or singing in the background. Yeah, it gave me the Dune vibes.
Yeah. Also interesting, I thought, the movie's take on deepfakes. Like, they're using deepfakes as a weapon for good in this movie, which is a spicy take, right? Like, because it's very controversial technology, especially when it comes to things like replacing actors, right? And capturing somebody's likeness and then monetizing it long after they're gone or even when they're not on set. There's the famous Carrie Fisher in Rogue One. Like, they tried that for a while and it seems to have stopped. It seems like the backlash to that was bad enough that they've kind of shelved the idea, at least for a while. Like movie industry does just using the likeness of actors in perpetuity as CG characters. That seems to have disappeared.
I think the last time I remember it being a thing was the Flash movie, where they brought back all the like old Supermans and Batmans and stuff like that, and it just I think it left a really bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. Yeah,
and here it's seen as at least a neutral thing or a positive thing.
It was used for both. No, it was used for sort of kind of good and bad, because they used it to frame him initially. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they used it to frame him initially, and then they sort of kind of used it to get the confession out of him, or like I can't remember what they used.
No, they used it to erase the bad guy. Like, they completely recast him, because as it turns out, all the footage was the stuntman anyway, right? Yeah. And just needed to deepfake Jason Momoa's face onto Ryan Gosling's body, and then they probably reshot a couple of like the speech scenes, like it was reshot. But but the implication was all the real work is done anyway, because that's what the stunt people did, and the actor kind of is replaceable.
I think I missed that. I was checked out, because when I saw Jason Momoa pop up, I was like, okay, cool. They went and hired Jason.
I thought it was a neat gag. It's like it has this undertone of actors are replaceable, stunt people and all the support people are the real heroes. Mm-hmm. But actually, who wins is the studios, right? Because the movie got made and they got rid of the problematic actor and stuff like that, and everybody is really interchangeable. Yeah. Which is a little bit ambivalent, to put it mildly.
Before this comes to a close, how do you feel about how the film unfolded?
Pacing-wise, it was really good. The logical progression from one scene to the next, I thought, was really good. I didn't feel like it dragged at all. I thought the ending was maybe a bit long. I think the whole scene with the speedboat was good enough that I thought it was the end or was close to the end. And then we have this extended sequence about the entrapment on the movie set and stuff like that, which actually I liked a lot, but it did feel a bit long towards the end. But other than that, I thought it was really good. Really, like pacing was very deliberate, and I didn't think anything was especially redundant. So overall, I was not bored throughout. Like for me, a lot of movies kind of drag in the middle, even the good ones, and that I didn't have in this case.
Because I didn't enjoy the movie. I felt like the movie was long, but I wouldn't say like the movie had anything unnecessary in there. And I'll just say I wasn't enjoying the movie. So I felt the length of the movie because I wasn't having a good movie, not because of the movie's pacing or anything like that. I was just ready to leave.
Well, for me, found that was alright, especially with, the ending, Gail being the whole mastermind behind everything, what kind of made it more, the experience more interesting for me. I do think maybe they should have kind of incorporated her character even more into the film. Because you know how she transitioned from the whole fake, nice, professional, ditzy type of character into a whole maniac in the end where she was in a helicopter waving the gun. I think they should have kind of like incorporated her character where we see elements of that and aspects of her evil genius, and it could have been even more interesting. But overall, it unfolded all right.
After this discussion, do you think you'll have a stronger handle on why you didn't like it, or was it just bounced off you?
Open question to both, or?
Yeah, to both.
Oh, I think for me, the tone of the movie didn't quite sit right for me. The comedy wasn't that great. The romance didn't really hit. I wasn't invested in the story enough to sort of really care about what was really going on. I don't think there's a particular character that I really care about that much. I know we mentioned Gail as maybe like one that was like cool, but that was again just because she was in Ted Lasso. And I think I spent like about 5 minutes of the movie trying to figure out where I remembered her from. And then when it hit, I was like, oh, she's from Ted Lasso, which was like cool for me. But when I say the tone, it's really weird because I do normally like a good like action comedy movie, but this one just blew by me. I didn't find it funny. It didn't like strike well with me at all. And I can appreciate like the technicalities of it and stuff like that. And again, like I feel like if I enjoyed anything the most out of it was the action, but it wasn't enough to like make me really enjoy the movie. But that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, it's funny that I don't think we disagree about anything. I also did not find the humor all that great, and I also had some serious problems with the romance. But I just found the plotting of it, like that I could really latch onto that. It's almost like this movie was specifically made for me because it does everything I always complain about exactly right.
Yeah.
That's like the foundation of a good movie. That by itself doesn't make it a good movie, but that is what good movies are built on. It might come as a shock, but I don't have huge story problems with this. Like, it's maybe a little bit contrived that a guy who's washed out of the profession can just come back so that he can be blamed for the actor's crime, right? If you really scrutinize it, you have to ask, okay, doesn't the insurance company have something to say about that and that sort of thing? But like just on a motivation standpoint and on a causality standpoint, it all checks out. Like every major character decision, I think, checks out. I think one thing logically flows from one thing into the next. And if a movie does that consistently, like that puts it already in the top 20% of movies just by doing that, because so many don't.
Yeah. I just feel like on the story aspect of it, I felt like they maybe could have cut off the romance side of things. I felt like they could have
maybe de-emphasize it a little bit.
Yeah, and then maybe focus on focus on the action comedy a little bit more and try to get a little bit more laughs out of it and stuff like that. Yeah,
that kept Jodie more abstract, right, and not gone into as much detail on what she specifically thinks and does. Maybe it would have worked better, because that was the part for me that dragged it down, where I kept thinking, what exactly does he see in her? But that's also subjective, right? Like that's just how I would react to somebody like that, I think.
Like I said before, I definitely didn't dislike the film. I just thought it was generic. And obviously with what you said, Daniel,
it does down into that a little bit. Sorry to interrupt, but when you say generic, like, to me, this is the exact opposite of generic, because everything is very specific, I thought.
No, I was going to go into what you
all the character motivations, all the causality in the plot is all very specific to those specific people and that specific setting. Thematically, it ties very much into the idea of the stuntman, and that is reflected in every aspect of the movie, I thought. Number one, do you agree or disagree with that? And number two, how is that generic?
No, I was gonna fall into what you were going into all of that. What I was gonna say was I felt it was generic in terms of the feeling, right? So, like I said,
Okay.
emotion is definitely big for me. In terms of which I was going to follow up by saying, with what you said in terms about, the deeper meanings and allegories, it definitely made me appreciate the film even more, because during the time of watching the film, I didn't like, there was some things which you said were like, yeah, I definitely understood that, but there was some things I didn't even see. Like, for example, the whole stuntman, about the point where you made how this guy's actually a stuntman, and the way that he's taking in the pain. That's like his general day-to-day job. So that,
his entire life is about making other people look good or benefiting other people and getting hurt in the process.
Exactly. So when you were saying stuff like that, I was like, okay, yeah, I can definitely appreciate the film more. But it's still, for me, it just was generic in terms of like the feeling that I got from the film. Because like I said, that's
totally. Like it feels like a generic, like hard-hit action comedy, right, with a romance angle.
Yeah, but but I do get what you're saying. Why you combated the whole point about it being generic, because you say kind of, the story makes sense, and obviously the pieces go together, and the message that was presented actually works. I understand that, for me personally, I feel like just because something fits well together and it makes sense, just because something makes sense doesn't always mean it's going to be good. I think that's just when personal tastes come into play, and I just don't think
it's not the same thing as personal enjoyment.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think for me personally, what would have made this a way better experience is if it was presented in a more, like, for example, Fallout, for example, right? I think this kind of falls into the whole tone thing. Like, Fallout's tone, like, you can definitely see the comedic value into it, but it's not like immature corny in a way. It's, there is a seriousness to it, and then there's the whole comedy side merged into one. I think if this film, for me personally, had more of a like serious tone, and it wasn't just all throughout comedy, action, romance, if that, you know what I'm saying? Because there was I just didn't feel any seriousness to this film for me, and I always need that serious tone when it comes to movies. I just don't know why. I just gravitate towards that more. I think I would have had a better experience with this film. But like I said, overall, I didn't think it was a bad film. I just thought it was all right, and the action scenes definitely was the reason why I was more interested in the film, and the whole revelation with Gail definitely got me more intrigued into the film. But obviously, after what you said, Daniel, in terms of what the film represented, the deeper meanings, etc., etc., it's definitely made me appreciate the film even more.
It's interesting you mentioned the plot twist as well. Like the plot twist, I was just a bit like,
which twist is that?
Both of them. Like the twist of like him being the one that set him up at the start of the movie to like actually like kind of fall
so that twist didn't do nothing for me. It was just Gail being the one that was responsible for. I was like,
oh. Gail's one was probably the one that actually, I think I can agree with you. Like Gail's twist was probably the one, but like Tom Ryder, like him being the bad guy, didn't do anything for me.
So you didn't buy the whole motivation of he's completely reckless with other people and their safety, and so he gets somebody killed by accident, and now he's looking for a fall guy.
I mean, I can buy it, and I can understand it. I can buy it, but I'm not saying that it didn't work for the movie, and I'm not saying it wasn't kind of like thematically something well done or whatever like that. I'm just saying I just wasn't moved by it. I feel like that's where there's the disconnect, and I can like look at this and I can see how, it's got good audience scores, and I can see how it's been a crowd pleaser for like a lot of people. And again, that's why I emphasized for me at the start of the movie, where it can do a lot of these things right, but then it just doesn't move me the way it moved other people.
I actually think this is one of the few cases where social commentary actually works, because in so many cases, the movie either doesn't have anything to say, or it has to resort to straw man and polemic in order to actually say it. And here, this whole thing about somebody who is considered like second class in the business gets killed because of the recklessness of the star, and then somebody else has to pay the price. Like, that completely works for me. And the plot drives all of that, and that idea resonates throughout the movie over and over again, right? Where, aside from just being a human being who deserves to not be treated as second class, right? But also this whole thing about like his work is anonymous and he's deemed replaceable, even though in the end the star is really replaceable, and all of those things. I thought that all hung together, and it does so. Like, for instance, the beekeeper resorts to like ridiculous hyperbole and polemics to find a bad guy. The movie wasn't satisfied with just having them be scammers. It had to be the entire system that is comically evil. And for me, that's where the movie fell apart, really. And this movie doesn't really do that. Like, Gail gets a little bit cartoonish in the end, but at that point, she's also panicking and reaching for straws. So I actually appreciated it for actually thinking through the scenario and justifying the point it was trying to make, because so many movies don't.
I can agree with that. It's a very valid point.
All right, guys. I think we've come to the time where we need to give our last thoughts and ratings.
I can go first. I'm not going to be too harsh on it. I will give it a 4.5 out of 10. I'm going to emphasize this is my personal opinion because I can see how other people have like other feelings towards the movie. But for me, I think just to summarize it is everything that they were going for just didn't resonate with me, and I feel like this highlights where people might just like value things differently when they like kind of going into the movies, and like some things are more important to others and like some things are less important or whatever. And in terms of like what strikes a chord with me or sort of works for me, it just didn't for whatever reason. And again, this is a type of normally like type of movie I would normally like, you know, love and gobble up and enjoy, but it just didn't hit for me this particular time. So I'll give it a 4.5 out of 10.
Does anyone remember what I gave Madam Web?
5 out of 10.
Okay,
Which is insane.
Yeah, I'll give this one. I'll give this one a 5.5. It was definitely, I'd say, it was better than Madam Web, slightly better than Madam Web, and definitely because of what Daniel said, it's definitely made me open my eyes. You know, it's definitely made me appreciate this film more. So that's why I've added a 0.5. Because before I was just gonna give it 5 because, like I said, it was for me average. But it was fun. It was average fun. So yeah, it just, for me, it just didn't pull any emotional heartstrings. I think that's a big thing I look for when I go and watch movies. Things do need to make sense, 100%. But if it makes sense and it just doesn't do anything for me when it comes to interest, then I just can't fully enjoy the film. But overall, it was a fun experience because of the fight scenes. But yeah, just overall, but just when it comes to like the tone of it, I think that's what kind of didn't do it for me. 5.5.
I'm giving it a 5 out of 6. It's like it does everything right, and I think everything it does wrong is taste. Like the only really big criticism I have is that it thinks much more highly of Jodie than I do. And therefore, the movie loses me in a bunch of decisions that Colt makes, continually risking his life to get on her good side and live up to her standards, essentially. And I think that's very misguided. But that's pretty much the only thing where I really thought, yeah, movie, you now you've lost me. Everything else just works. And it has, like, on a technical level, I think it's excellent. I think and everything else is just solid. Like I think characters, plot, themes, everything is good to great. And I think the technical aspect of it just makes it stand out in a year where most movies are shoddy and not thought through and have broken stories and that sort of thing. And on that level, I think it's excellent, but not perfect.
Well, guys, you've heard it here first. I have the Storm Podcast. Let us know what you think in the comment section below. And Hervé?
Yeah. If you want to continue supporting our channel as we're growing, I've been doing this for a couple months now. Hit the like, share, and subscribe.
Alright, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. We will catch you next week. Au revoir.
Ciao.